Okay, so Jayne, thank you very much for being here with me this afternoon on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be invited on.
Yeah, great. And so for the listeners out there, can you just give a brief overview of who you are and what it is that you do at the moment?
My name is Jayne O'Toole. My business is Real Nutrition. I am an MNU certified nutritionist. I've done precision nutrition before that. I also train a lot in CrossFit, weightlifting. I work in a private practice. I do some online coaching, and I've also just branched into seminars of late as well. So I work with a diverse range of clients, men and women, from athletes to weight loss clients, working with different variety of principles from calories to non-tracking methods and behavior change. So yeah, not too far off yourself.
Great. Yeah, no, it's just nice to give people an overview of why you are here. And I'm looking forward to getting into a good discussion about particularly training with women and the fact that you've said that you've come from a bit more of a CrossFit background yourself as well. The listeners out there will definitely lean toward that. How long have you been in the CrossFit world?
I have been doing CrossFit on and off now for about 6 years.
Okay.
Started quite a long time ago.
Hmm.
Came from not from an athletic background whatsoever, and found a love for weightlifting and CrossFit, and yeah, completely changed my mindset on my body image and where I was at in my life. Completely transformed it
Mm-hmm.
from being quite overweight to where I'm at now, which would be like a lot fitter, healthier mentally and physically. So yeah, I would be a big believer in CrossFit and weightlifting
I,
being transformative for women.
yes, I think definitely from a perspective of like body image and way of training in particular. And that's something I wanted to touch on with you actually, is that a lot of women, even that do any kind of type of training, but even CrossFit now, there seems to be a lot of focus wholly on weight loss, and that becomes people's kind of primary focus point. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fitness of the athletes that we see all the time on Instagram and what have
Yeah.
you. And with your own journey, you said that you came from a position of being slightly overweight.
Yes.
How did that look for you in terms of getting to the point you are now, and what kind of things have you had to overcome?
Well, for me, I had a lot of weight ups and downs throughout my life. Like I had a very poor relationship with food, very disordered habits. So my weight would go from, I would get quite overweight down to getting extremely lean at certain points. Any training I did was purely based on more of a wanting to lose weight, wanting to get leaner. So I very, very much understand that side of things from females who come to work with me or come training with me. It
Mm-hmm.
was always about the aesthetic side of things. I think through all the other types of training I did, I tried running, I tried class work. It wasn't until I started doing CrossFit and weightlifting, and I had lost a little bit of weight leading up to it from running and some classes. But I started it with the goal of getting toned and, trying to lose a little bit more weight and stay that way. And then over time, my mindset just completely flipped. It was in the class base, started to get kind of a little bit of a competitive edge that I never knew I had. Started to really appreciate the fact that there was things I was good at from the get-go that I never knew I was good at, like deadlifts and squats. And suddenly adding more weight to the bar and being able to lift heavier became more of a focus for me.
Mm-hmm.
That completely changed my mindset. For the first time ever, I started caring about what my body could do, not just what it looked like. And for a while it was, you get quite torn between the two, and you try and align both goals. But slowly over time, your body changes as a consequence of the fact that you're moving quicker, lifting heavier, applying yourself more. But you appreciate your body in a whole new way.
Mm-hmm.
You start wanting to fuel it accordingly. You want to be better at what you're doing,
Yeah. Yeah. And when did that switch happen for you? Because I think a lot of women who I have worked with and who I speak to regularly, they talk about this desire for losing weight, but then there's also the desire to improve their performance. How did you make that switch? Because I know for a lot of women I look at and I'm like, you actually probably don't need to lose more fat if you want to look more toned, as you just said there. It actually comes down to muscle building. How was that from your own education that you sort of made that realization yourself, or did you have help with it? How did you get there?
Very much, I'd say, through my own education and meeting other women within the sport and training with other women and communicating with them. It wasn't an overnight switch. As much as I was appreciating what my body could do, I'd spent years and years of criticizing my body for what it looked like. So it's very hard to take yourself away from the number on the scale. We're all very pre-programmed to look at that scale weight, regardless of how smart and educated you are, regardless of how logical a person you are. It's ingrained in a lot of our brains to focus that and equate it with how we look. Picking it over a certain time in our life when we felt we looked the best at a certain weight. All of these things just keep nipping away in the back of your mind. And I think the only way is to make a steady progression toward changing your goals, changing what you see as progress, taking pictures, taking measurements, looking at muscle definition, taking the focus away from the scale, having items of clothes that you wear that suddenly fit you a lot better. So, like, starting to notice that, like, different coaches have been really helpful for me by kind of explaining to me that sometimes you can create the illusion of a shape, and that's muscle. Like, building lats would give me a waist, and the fact that getting a bit more of a booty would give you a waist and make you look leaner, and that there was certain women I would look at and think they had an amazing physique, and then realize that they may be bigger than me. They may be heavier, but they have muscle, and that has given them a structure and a shape. I think it's something that takes time, and you can't expect your mindset to change overnight, but subtle changes, steady progress mentally as much as physically is really important. And I think bringing the focus to more fitness and performance-based goals is really important. Like, appreciating those goals, even behavior goals, nutrition goals that aren't all about the aesthetic, I think really beneficial in changing your mindset, like setting different targets like that. Definitely, like, communicating with other women, looking at other women's physiques and kind of explaining how that was achieved can be helpful. Getting back to enjoying training for training. Just definitely taking the attention away from constantly being about the aesthetic is hugely important for changing your mindset and your appreciation of your body. And if you're more positive and you're enjoying the process more, you're more inclined to be kinder to yourself and appreciate your body a little bit more. And taking it away from the scales, absolutely, like tape measures, progress pictures, items of clothing fitting you better. That's hugely impactful, I think, in changing your mindset.
Yeah, because a lot of women will worry when they get to a stage where they've lost the body fat and they're quite happy, or even if they feel like they still have a long way to go, but you talk to them about this idea of building muscle, building shape, and how that's going to make you look aesthetically better. And they'll worry that as soon as they start to eat more food, they might feel maybe a bit more bloating because they've eaten more carbohydrates, and then they see the scale weight shoots up and they instantly think that they might have put body fat back on because they've been eating more, despite the fact of progressing from a deficit now into more maintenance calories. And it must be, as you said, it's a tough journey to go through. It takes time.
It takes a lot of time and a lot of education as well. I think as coaches, it is really important for us to spend the time and explain to them and not expect people to get it overnight or change their mindset, but continuously reassure and explain the evidence behind weight gain, with the increase in carbohydrates, increase in water weight, the fact that like hormonal fluctuations as women are going to have a dramatic impact on your scale weight as well. And it's continuously reassuring that is highly likely, and taking other measures of progress alongside that. So education, other ways of measuring progress aligned, just help to calm the worries. I've seen the face on like a number of clients who even have been with me for quite some time and would understand the progress, and still if the weight doesn't shift, there's a moment, there's this brief moment of like disappointment, and then the realization of, oh yeah, no, yeah, that's probably water weight. It's like, did you have a coffee? Did you drink water? Did you just train? Did you have a carb heavy meal last night? Where are you at in your cycle? And you communicate these things with them, and suddenly you usually find the reason that the scale weight has gone up right there. You know, so many factors that can impact scale weight. And I think it definitely takes time for someone to be training for a while and working with a coach for a while who can continuously reassure them of this. And if you're measuring body fat, obviously that really helps as well to keep an eye on the fact that it's not fat, you know.
Yeah.
Fat.
Yeah. And in a remote setting, as you said, that's looking at pictures and measurements as well. We need to be measuring people around like the stomach, the waist, that kind of area, to see that actually your scale weight might have gone up, but there's no visible changes in body fat whatsoever. So
no. And sometimes it's a feeling, you know, sometimes, as you said, bloating. Like sometimes it is just a feeling. Like how many times we've been like, oh, heard one of your clients say, oh, I feel really bloated, or you feel fat. And, you know, it's a feeling, and it's because of an internal feeling of bloating makes people feel this way. And aesthetically, nothing has probably shifted that much.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a journey, as you said, isn't it? It is a journey, and more women would find themselves probably enjoying their training more. And as you said, if they set themselves more performance-based target goals and said, right, I'm going to pretty much throw the scale away because my focus is away from fat loss.
Exactly. I think there was actually a really good post recently I saw the Food Medic put up, and it was relating to that with body image and mental health, and like training more for performance-based goals is correlated more positive body image compared to training solely for aesthetic goals. So like, because they were looking at training frequency and people training a hell of a lot and increasing their training frequency, and wasn't negative towards body image. And when it's more based around performance, enjoyment, fitness related goals, it's really positive. But when it's more solely based on aesthetic goals, it has a negative impact. And I thought that was a really good post, because it's pretty much, it's this whole idea.
Yeah.
Exactly that. It's like changing your mindset on your body image. You're like, even if you're training for performance goals, obviously everyone wants to look better naked, you know, it's kind of, it's a nice knock-on effect of being fitter and healthier. But that's the thing, it's a knock-on effect. It's something that will happen if you prioritize getting fitter, healthier, and nourishing your body. All of these things will have a knock-on effect of making you look better, feel better, be healthier. And you might change your mindset and change in your head what you view as healthy and fit and happy. That might change as well. That might shift. What you think healthy and fit looks like is probably a little bit screwed, you know, compared to what you're seeing online and in the media. Healthy is not always what we think it is.
No, not at all. And I think that's a big point, in that, especially within the CrossFit world, we're seeing people on our Instagram feeds, on our Facebook feeds, who are at like the peak of fitness, and they're also at the genetic peak of fitness, because if anyone could train for 6 hours a day and recover from that and become elite, then they would absolutely do it. But a lot of people, if they do that much volume, they just break, which is why they are.
I've done that a few times.
So have I, and that's the point I wanted to make, actually, that you just said there about changing your perception of why you're training will then probably have more of a positive knock-on effect to your diet and body composition as a whole, as opposed to training for the goal of fat loss. Because I've had this conversation with people before where I say, think about exercise as a means for exercise. So you're doing exercise as a means to either because you enjoy that exercise, or you're doing it for the benefits of health, physical fitness, strength, whatever it is that you enjoy doing and what your goal is. And then you almost think about food second, because you then eat at the requirement of that goal, as opposed to like, right, I'm going to do this exercise because that's going to burn more calories, and then I'm going to be able to eat more food.
Yeah. That negative association, while it's like, if you're focusing on training for the fact that it's going to make you healthier, fitter, happier, you know, all around your life, it's going to make you live a longer, happier life. You're going to be able to run around with your partner, run around with your kids, do all these things, stand up and sit down, carry your own shopping into old age. If you focus on a more for that, for cardiovascular health, all of these things, as opposed to just the fact that you want to look a certain way, which will probably be quite transient and fleeting, because like, you know, you'll have this ridiculous aesthetic goal that's not sustainable. Focus more on, yeah, being happier and healthier. And then food becomes secondary as nourishment. You want to feel energized, you want to feel fueled, you want to get that honed look, and I hate using that word, but like that lean aesthetic.
Yeah.
That's muscle, you know, you need that. You need to be strong, you need to train for that, you need to nourish that with enough protein, you know, realizing that this stuff isn't going to make you bulky. It's like, bloody wish it would. Many an hour gone into trying to get bigger. It's not that easy. It's really freaking hard, really hard. And as you said, with the girls and guys that you see in CrossFit, they're at the elite of sport. They put 6 hours a day in with a training history that stems back to childhood to look that way, you know, to get bulky.
Yeah.
It takes a long, long time. You're not going to drink a protein shake and lift a barbell and get huge.
No.
You know, that's a really big part of, I think, what people need to realize as well.
Yeah, that idea of strength training for women is more of a case of, as you said there, sculpting your body, putting on muscle mass in the right areas, and it's not going to make you quote unquote bulky. It's not going to just make you a big giant guy. It's
going to make you awesome.
Yeah. And it's, I think women in particular, more so than men, will get into that trap of doing hours of cardio and low calorie dieting in order to get a physique that they think is Instagram worthy, for want of a better word.
And it is, they want a certain aesthetic, and they're just going to run themselves into the ground, just constantly doing cardio and not fueling themselves at all, which is like, it can be so detrimental. Like there's like so many women are reducing their, like with no real knowledge of their energy needs, are reducing their calories down to unhealthy levels to try and achieve a certain look, and it's going to have a negative impact on their overall health moving forward. Like as females as well, like our menstrual cycle is hugely energy dependent, and if you're not getting enough fuel and you're training, you're going to impact that. And the knock-on effect for your mental and physical health from that, your immune function, osteoporosis, if you lose your period for a long period of time, sorry to use the word twice, it's gonna have a knock-on effect to your overall health moving forward in your life. And that's something that I found more and more people reach out. I did a post on it a couple of months back, and the amount of women messaging me saying, oh, I've lost my period, I don't really know what to do about it. Like, I had dozens of messages from people, which shocked me, that they assumed this was normal, that it was okay, that this happened quite often, or they didn't need to reach out or tell somebody. And I really think as coaches, be it nutritionists or trainers, we need to open the conversation about this more with our clients, with our female clients. It needs to become a commonplace and a commonplace discussion, because it is happening quite frequently, and people's understanding of why it happens or how it happens isn't enough, isn't sufficient. They have an assumption that you need to be very, very lean for this to happen, like stage lean, and it's just simply not the case. It can happen at a range of body fat levels, and every one of us females is different as to what level of leanness our body can handle, what level of stress we can handle, what volume of training. If you're stressed out, then adding the stress of training, which is a stressor, and it's a positive stressor, but it is a stressor, and then you're not fueling your body correctly with the right amount of food, you're going to lose your menstrual cycle. It's the first thing your body shuts down, because it's no longer a favorable environment for pregnancy, and other organs that are more important, like your brain and your heart, you know. And if your period's gone for longer than a 9 months period, or like, you're in serious danger of some knock-on effects.
Yeah, and it's, you know, probably struggling to get pregnant further down the line, even when you get it back, which I think a lot of women will attest to, that having kids at some point is most people's kind of end goal. It's kind of why we're sort of put on this planet, is to sort of procreate and spread the gene pool. And what I found fascinating about what you just said there, Jayne, was the idea of each woman has their own level of like leanness that their body will attain to.
Yeah.
And this is something that even men don't click on with, is this whole idea of how lean can you get and not suffer from it, because people will, either from genetic predisposition and also their upbringing, so that, you know, the combination of their genetic and their environment, they're now at an adult level and they can walk around leaner than other men do, and other men would have to diet pretty extreme to get visible abs year round, whereas some guys are just like, yeah, and what?
Yeah.
and women are definitely the same.
Absolutely.
And it was interesting how you said there are some women that have mentioned to you that they've reached this point of no period, which means that they're very, very energy deficient, yet they're in a fat loss phase. So they're saying to you, Jayne, I'm over fat. I don't feel confident with how I look, but this has happened. So how would you advise those women going forward with their fat loss goal? Is it a case of, I'm sorry, this is just the leanest you're going to get, or have they just been too aggressive with it?
With a lot of people, it will be down to the aggressiveness of their diet, that they have either gone too hard in the gym alongside too large of a deficit for too long, that it's impacted their body. And I would always recommend as well that they go to a doctor and get bloods done, just in case it's from any other reason, like that it's not a health-based reason, or there's not some other underlying issues there that they need to consider. If they get the all clear there, then it is down to stress on the body, be it through the intensity of your training, the stress within your life, or too hard of a deficit for too long. So I would recommend reining back the training, focusing on sleep, meditation, reducing your stress levels in general, bringing your calories back up to maintenance, so there won't necessarily be weight gain. But it's the most important thing is trying to eliminate all stressors and getting it back. At the end of the day, if you have to go into a small surplus to get your period back, getting your period back is the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's for your long-term health. And for, as I said, like this can impact your immune function, cause infertility, osteoporosis. There's no point like being lean or training if you're damaging your bones in the long term. You know, you have to look ahead and not for an immediate aesthetic. You have to look ahead to your future and your future health, and know that it's not okay. You know, that losing your period it's not okay. It's a huge function that will have a knock-on impact, even with like mental health and depression. Obviously, with your hormones being impacted like that, like, you know how women feel at different stages of their cycle, like impacted that dramatically. To lose your period, it can cause depression. So there's so many factors that it definitely needs to be a conversation that's open and people are comfortable talking about.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that draws me to the next sort of question then, is that because we talked a lot about women getting to a point where they'd actually lost body fat and actually they need to just put muscle mass on now. And a lot of women need to have a conversation with someone else before they make that realization themselves. I think a lot of women fall into the trap of chronic dieting. But let's say you are a woman who has more body fat than they would like, and that they probably should do from an optimal health point of view. You're training hard as well, and so you've got quite a big energy output. What would your because you just talked about there about aggressive deficits and then too high stress training. So what would be your kind of checklist for working with a female client, and then where would you sort of set them in terms of percentage energy intake, just to make sure that we would stay away from sort of any negative feelings, but they would still drop fat at an appropriate rate per week, whatever that would be?
Very much client dependent and goal dependent, and what methods we're using as well. But if it was somebody that we were working on a deficit, that would depend on what level of body fat they're at when we're starting as well. But I would usually, like, if they are training quite hard and performance and muscle is important to them, I would usually only start with like a 200 or 300 calorie deficit of fat loss phase and take it from there. Because if training is important, we don't want to impact their energy levels, we don't want to impact their training, don't want to put that stress on. If they don't have an immediate or a very like an aesthetic goal that is quite soon, or an event or something that they need to get lean quickly for, then what pushing it, I would take my time with it with somebody and keep an eye on their performance and energy levels. And before I increase the deficit, that it will be down to how's your sleep, how's your hunger levels, how's your stress levels, how's training feeling, how are your lifts, like how's your cardio going. Like there would be a checklist on how they feel, their hunger levels, their stress levels, sleep, because if you are in too big of a deficit, it can impact your sleep. So yeah, they would definitely be looking at the spectrum and their mood as well. And then obviously if their cycle is impacted, if they're dieting for a long period of time, but that usually doesn't happen until you're in more of an aggressive deficit.
Yeah, and also chronically dieting for a long period of time.
Exactly.
And it would be then incorporating different refeeds, maintenance breaks and stuff within a female's plan. What my question would be to you, Jayne, when you talked a bit about the cycle and educating clients around weight fluctuations around that as well. And I've found this particularly with looking at females' weight graphs, is that we do have to rely more on body measurements than body weight week on week. Can you give us a brief overview of what women kind of expect through the different phases and why it might fluctuate?
Well, the thing with it, like, the menstrual cycle is going to impact all aspects. Like, it's going to impact your training massively. It's going to impact your nutrition, like the type of foods you want and you're going to be drawn to. So with the menstrual cycle, you've got like your menstrual phase and follicular phase, and that would be from when your period starts till you ovulate. So that's probably the easiest way to explain that. And during that phase, once the PMS is over and you hit the follicular phase, which is when your period starts, training's good. Like, that's usually when you feel awesome. Like, your training usually improves. You usually will, it's a good time to like hit a max lift. You feel good. Your appetite is usually feeling more regulated. The issues kind of kick in when the luteal phase starts, and that's when you ovulate. And during that phase is when, as a woman, you will start, because progesterone rises, you will start getting the carbohydrate cravings. People usually get a little bit hungrier. You can feel clumsier. Training doesn't feel so good. You get like a little bit of lethargy kicks in. You start feeling a bit off. And that's when it leads up to when you start getting PMS, which is when you get moody, you feel really crap, and that's very female dependent. And then again, once you get back to the follicular phase, period starts, it all regulates again. That's typical, stereotypical kind of way it goes.
Sure.
So like, you can see the difference there between nutrition and training is adaptable, but everyone tries to fight against it.
Yep.
I have a huge recommendation with my clients that those who have a regular cycle that we work with, is that when it comes to the phase where you are feeling a little bit clumsy and you're not feeling great, my recommendation is be kinder to yourself. Accept that week your training might be a little bit off. Communicate it with your coach, or just expect that you can't lift as heavy. You won't lift as heavy. You may not be able to give it as much, and just be proud of the fact that you're moving and training. Maybe do a little bit more cardio, a little bit less, heavy lifting. And when it comes to your nutrition, though, like clients of mine who would struggle quite hard, and especially if they're dieting and they would find around their period that they, around when they're just before their period, that they feel a little like bingier and the cravings kick in, I say bring the calories back up to maintenance maybe for that week. It's not going to affect the whole month overall. You're not 1 week, you're not a day. And allow for a little extra chocolate if you want to, allow for a little extra carbs, because usually you want that little bit of extra fuel. And yeah, be kinder to yourself. Work around it instead of trying to fight against it and beat yourself up further. I think that's a huge part of it. And the realization weight-wise that female dependent, again, we're all very unique.
Yeah.
Through our period. I've seen people's weight shoot up anything from 1 kg to 4, and it's pure water. Like, and, like, that is the impact it can have. And people need to realize that. Like, I've tested it out myself numerous times. Like, I've great crack, like if I've been traveling or like eating loads of carbs or at that part time of the month for myself. And I can see fluctuations in my weight of, I think the most I've seen is 4.5 kg.
Shit. Yeah.
Which is huge. Like,
I
was bloated, but I know what's happening.
Yeah.
But I try and explain this to clients. It's like, this happens to all of us. You have to understand it and accept it and try and work with it. Yeah, you're probably dependent on the level of PMS that a woman gets. She's feeling great in general, and you're going to feel a little bit low, be inclined to beat yourself up a little bit more, but just try and keep reminding yourself of that fact that at that time is when you need to be kinder to yourself. Yeah. And it will pass. Like,
I think that's great, because a lot of women out there who, you know, a lot of women who will try to improve their fitness, improve their health, as you said, they'll rely on this scale weight as a kind of metric of whether things are going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then if they go through this phase where actually they're a bit more bloated and their body weight creeps up and they are craving more carbohydrates, which they then indulge upon, and then they store water because of that increased carb output, that input, sorry. And then it's just like, oh my God, I've put on
knock-on effect.
Like, oh my God, like I've got to crash diet now. And I guess a lot of women will, especially if they have a negative relationship with food, which a lot of people do around sort of bad foods. If they indulge in some foods that they feel are bad and then see a knock-on effect on the scale, it can then cause, you know, a celery cleanse come Monday.
Very vulnerable, because at that time of the month, like when your hormones are fluctuating like that, if you are susceptible to disordered eating or anything like that, you're very, very vulnerable, especially then if you do start trying to restrict or you become obsessed with scale weight at that time of the month. I always like, when it comes to weight, it's either do it right with purpose, like the same conditions every morning or at least 3 to 4 days a week and take a mean, or don't do it at all, you know. Like it's one of those things where it can just become too much of a focus for people overall, you know. And unless you really need to know your weight, you know, it's probably better to stay away from it. If something makes you that unhappy and impacts the rest of what you're doing so negatively, it's probably better to take a break from it entirely, you know, or just allow yourself to be weighed when you check in with your coach, you know?
Yes. And I think that must be probably the hardest part of being a female athlete in a weight class sport. And I don't know if you have, I mean, I know that you're from a CrossFit background like I am, so you've probably come across a few women who are powerlifting and weightlifting based, either from that crossover or just finding you in general. That must be a pretty hard journey, because if these women need to weigh a certain amount on the scale, but they're in this position where their body weight is just fluctuating like crazy, it's got to be I mean, just to guess from what I would do would be a case of doing some kind of water cut pre-weighing, just because otherwise you're just not going to make it, and you don't want to sacrifice performance leading up to it.
Very much so. It's a really difficult position to be in with athletes on their period. It's why a lot of them end up using contraception, like contraceptive pills and things like that, to try and like skip a period occasionally when there's sport and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really, really difficult. I think I can't remember, I was reading recently, somebody had a link where a female athlete, she couldn't, when she weighed herself, she didn't get to see the scale weight, and it just got sent straight to her coach.
Okay.
With an app, and I was just like, that's brilliant, so that she couldn't get like preoccupied with it and the fluctuations, and the coach could just make the changes necessary to help through it. And I was like, that's genius.
Yeah, it is.
Every female athlete who has to make weight should have that, so they don't have to. It was an app, I think it was a powerlifter, she wrote about it, and she would get so preoccupied with her weight, and it would cause her a lot of stress, and obviously stress is going to have a knock-on effect with that.
Yeah.
And so it's just then that would impact sleep again with another knock-on effect. So taking this away from her, coach had the genius idea of like just having an app on one of those scales that sends the weight directly to the coach. She could cover it up, and she never had to look at her weight, and it was the best weight cut she'd ever had.
Yeah, well, I think every remote coach out there would want a set of those scales.
Yeah.
Because as you said, like a lot of women might be better off just throwing the scales out the window. But it's that need to sort of know whether things are moving in the right direction, no matter how many times you say to people. Men are guilty of it as well. You know, however many times you say, look, like there might be a rise, but if you're being completely adherent and you're doing the training that I think you're doing, like you are definitely in a deficit, and things will be moving in the right direction, because otherwise you're broken. And and we can get those checks done. And if you aren't broken, then we need to trust that these things are happening. And
exactly.
it's just a patience game.
It really is. And as I said, it is patience overall, and being patient with your mind as much as your body, you know, is a huge part of it. And accepting that, like, no matter how educated someone is and the knowledge they have, every now and then they're gonna have those little moments of kind of like looking at stuff like weight and kind of going, oh, maybe I didn't quite do as well. But it's not letting it beat you up as much, not like putting so much focus on it. And I really, like, I can't reiterate enough how focusing on other measures of progress in how you're feeling, improvements in your life, in like performance, fitness-based goals, how much of a difference that's going to make overall. It's game changing for people.
Yeah, definitely. I
Make
think
the process enjoyable.
yeah, just focus on, if fat loss is the goal, it's almost focusing then not on weight loss, because fat loss is not correlative to your gravitational pull toward the earth because of
Exactly.
the amount of different things that we've covered that can go into that. I think the one last thing I would want to ask would be, when you're working with female clients, you mentioned that idea of having a maintenance break, especially around that particular time of the cycle where they might have more cravings. With refeeds, diet breaks, maintenance periods, we've talked a lot about framing things to clients. And so how do you have that conversation with a female client? Because a lot of the time, again, there is that fear of, oh no, I don't want to eat more calories because I'll put on weight. And then a lot of might eat more calories one day, feel bloated, put on weight, and then the next day cut back again. Like, how do you, I guess, you ensure that buy-in and adherence from them, especially if remotely?
I think it's very much over time, and it is with education, reassurance, and like when it comes to getting people to look at being brought back up to maintenance. Maintenance is what it says on the tin. It's like, it's maintaining weight. It's an understanding that it's not going to change anything, and explaining the fact that like people can look at calories weekly. You know, you can have a weekly calories, look at it like a bank, you know, making deposits. It's like, it's bringing yourself up to maintenance for 1 week out of a whole month. It's not going to beat your long-term goals. You're still progressing, you're still moving forward, but you're going to do it in a happier and healthier manner. It really is just it's reassurance and education with people over time. And once they see the results, they see the change, that's kind of more where you get buy-in. You know, people have to actually see the results.
Yes.
And that's unfortunately it. You know, if they have seen what we've told them and taught them, and the principles you've helped them put in place get results previously, no matter what those principles are or the goals are, then people will give more buy-in when you do turn around and say, look, bring the calories up a little bit, see what happens. We're going to even increase the calories with protein and keep the carbs down, like, you know, increase the calories with like a little extra fat, keep a lower carbs so they don't get the extra water weight if weight is an issue, you know.
Sure.
That might be a way around it as well. But yeah, it's building that relationship, and that trust takes time.
Yeah, perfect. I think, as you said there's a lot of reasons for a lot of women probably to ask questions sooner, and to rely on that support from other people so that they can bounce questions back and forth and get that reassurance that they need, that they're still moving in the right direction, they're not sort of wasting their time.
Yeah, it's a minefield out there, and have to understand that with people. It's an absolute minefield of misinformation and images and everything. Like, we know it, we see it every day, and you're fighting against that. Like, and your clients are fighting against that and trying not to let it get inside their head. And even when they know better and they trust you, it's still really, really hard when you've got the internet, you've got TV, you've got advertising, but then you've got like people in your office or friends, family telling you different messages as well. It's really, really tough for people subliminally as much as like knowingly things going on and what they're seeing. So they've got to fight against that, as do you as a coach, and trying to reassure. But yeah, just over time, it's like, if anything, I think the more of us that speak out about what's really going on and what's really happening in the process, and just put out a good message, and people are reassured by that, and the more and more people, I think the evidence-based community and people who are more interested in like body image and positivity are getting louder and speaking louder and speaking up and joining forces. And I think that's a really, really important thing, that there's more positive messages like that out there for people to see.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. Great. So, and with that, where can people go to find out more about you and what you're up to?
I am Jayne_Real Nutrition on Instagram. It's probably the best place to find me right now. My website will be launched in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and that will be realnutrition.com. And there will be lots more information there on that, about upcoming seminars that I'll be doing. I'll be kicking off some online coaching options from September, October, more alongside my private practice. So yeah, check the website out, and Instagram definitely for now would be the best place to find me.
Great. Well, thank you again for being on.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. And I'm sure we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you.